Jade Carter is on her knees on the 52nd floor, cloth moving in slow circles across the black marble, when the door opens and the room changes weight. Through the polished floor, she can see his reflection, Park Si-hun, crouching behind her, rain-damp suit, luxury watch, completely still, watching the side of her face with the patience of a man who already knows the answer. A small silver pen cap lies on the floor between them. It fell. It made a sound. Jade did not react, but her hand stopped moving for half a second, and he caught it. She stares at a fixed point on the marble and runs the only rule that has kept her alive for 7 months on a loop. You are deaf. You heard nothing. You are nobody. The rule has never felt so finished. Subscribe and drop a comment telling us where you are watching from. We read every single one. She has a system. It took 3 nights to build and 7 months to perfect, and it has kept her alive in a building that does not tolerate mistakes. The foundation of it is simple. She does not hear. Not the conversations that stop half a second after she enters a room. Not the low, deliberate exchanges that resume once someone decides she does not count. Not the sounds that come from behind closed doors on floors she was not scheduled to clean. The kind of sounds she recognized on her 3rd night and has refused to name ever since. Jade Carter is deaf. She has been deaf since the moment she understood what kind of building the Hanel Tower actually was, and she has not heard a single thing in 7 months. What she does instead is see, not directly, never directly. She has trained herself to exist entirely in the periphery, to absorb a room through its edges, its surfaces, its reflections. The polished marble floors are mirrors if you know how to read them. The chrome fixtures on the 52nd corridor catch everything that moves behind her. The floor-to-ceiling windows after midnight turn the room into a dark glass box, and she is very good at reading dark glass boxes. She feels vibrations through the soles of her non-slip shoes before sound becomes sound. Footsteps translating into information, weight and pace and direction, so that she always knows exactly who is behind her and how far away they are, and whether they are moving toward her or not. Her movements communicate one thing only: harmlessness, slow, deliberate, the rhythm of someone whose world is exactly this wide and no wider. She does not rush, she does not linger. She does not look at doors that are slightly open, or screens that have not been turned away in time, or the faces of the men who pass through this building after midnight, wearing the kind of stillness that is not calm, but controlled. The Hanel Tower is too quiet for what it is, too clean. The lobby looks like the entrance to something legitimate, and the upper floors look like the offices of people who make decisions that affect large amounts of money, and nothing about any of it looks like what it is. The men who move through it after midnight are too well dressed and too unhurried, and their eyes are flat in a way that has nothing to do with boredom. She knows this. She has always known this. She keeps the cloth moving, and she does not know it. Park Si-hun she learned to feel before she ever saw him clearly, a change in the building's atmosphere, a drop in something she could not name, the way his own men went more still when he arrived rather than more alert, as though stillness was the only appropriate response. He has never looked at her. In 7 months, he has never once indicated she exists. She is almost at the service elevator at the end of the executive corridor when she passes the open office door. The laptop screen inside is angled toward her for exactly 3 seconds. Financial data, routing codes, numbers moving through a structure she has seen before, in her accounting coursework, in the shell company case studies her professor used as warnings. She does not stop. She does not slow. Her face does not change. Her mind files it without asking her permission. The meeting was supposed to end at 10. Jade knows this because she checked the schedule 3 times before taking the service elevator to the 52nd floor, the way she checks every schedule on every floor before she cleans it. Information is the only thing in this building she is allowed to collect, and she collects it carefully. The executive corridor, cleared by 10. She arrived at 10:14 to be safe. It is now 11:51, and the voices behind the glass partition have not stopped. She keeps moving, slow circles, the same rhythm she uses on every floor, in every corridor, at every hour. Her cart is at the far end of the hall, and she is working her way toward it one section at a time, the way she always does, the way a woman does who has nowhere to be and nothing to hear and no interest in anything beyond the 6 square feet of floor directly in front of her. The voices are speaking Korean. She does not understand Korean. She has not understood it for 7 months. She did not understand it when she worked the front desk of a Korean-owned imports firm for 2 years before this job, sitting 3 feet from conversations she was never meant to follow. She did not understand it when she spent 2 semesters in a language course because the patterns interested her, and patterns have always interested her. She does not understand it now. She moves the cloth. She keeps her eyes down. She does not understand a single word of what is being said behind the glass partition, about a city official whose name she recognizes from the news, about a timeline, about a man embedded inside this organization whose identity is being spoken aloud in a corridor that was supposed to be empty 40 minutes ago. She does not understand any of it. Her face does not change. Her rhythm does not change. She finishes the last section of corridor and straightens and moves toward the service elevator with the same unhurried purpose she always carries. Cartwheels quiet on the stone, eyes forward, body communicating nothing except harmlessness and invisibility and the complete and total absence of an inner life that could absorb or retain or be affected by anything in this building. 7 steps from the elevator. The word comes out before she can stop it, barely above breath, barely a sound at all. 1 syllable of pure reflex, the body's response to something the mind had no time to intercept. Gumanhe. She stops. The silence behind her is different now. It is not empty. It has texture and direction, and it is pointed directly at the back of her neck. She does not turn around. Park Si-hun steps out of the shadow 6 feet back. She knows this, not because she looks, but because the vibration of him reaches her through the soles of her shoes, unhurried, precise, and completely still once he stops moving. He does not speak. He does not need to. She can feel him reading the answer off the back of her head. The mask is already gone. It fell with the word. And somewhere in the quality of the silence behind her, in the patient and absolute stillness of the man standing 6 feet away, she understands that he watched the whole thing happen and has been watching for longer than that, and that the version of her that was nobody has just ceased to exist. He does not explain. That is the first thing she learns about how this works. There is no conversation in the corridor, no walk to an office, no questions asked across the desk, no moment where the situation is laid out and her options are presented. There is simply a man who appears at her left shoulder, one of the still ones from the wall, black suit, eyes forward, and a direction indicated with the smallest possible movement of his head, and Jade understands that the service elevator is no longer available to her tonight. She is on the residential floor before midnight. The suite is larger than her apartment and the one above it, and possibly the one above that. It is furnished in the way of a place that has been made to look comfortable without anyone consulting a person about what comfort actually requires. Clean lines, muted colors, a window that looks out over the city from an angle she does not recognize and cannot use to orient herself. The window does not open. She checks this within the first 4 minutes, the way she checks everything, fingers finding the seal along the frame while she appears to simply be looking at the view. Her phone is gone before she thinks to reach for it. The replacement is on the bedside table when she turns around, a model she does not recognize, locked to functions she did not choose, a leash that weighs exactly as much as a normal phone and works as something else entirely. The severe woman arrives the next morning. She does not introduce herself. She brings a tray and sets it on the table and leaves. And when she comes back an hour later, she brings clothing, plain black trousers, gray shirts, all of it simple and well-made, and with pockets too shallow to carry anything worth carrying. She takes Jade's cleaning uniform when she goes. She does not speak on either visit. She does not look at Jade the way you look at a person. She looks at her the way you look at a room you have been asked to maintain. Si-hun comes once. She does not hear him until he's already in the doorway, which tells her something about the quality of the carpet in the corridor and something else about the quality of his patience. He stands there for a moment in the way he stands everywhere, like the space was built around him rather than the other way around. He looks at her. 4 words. You understand the situation. Then he is gone. She does understand. That is the thing she cannot find a way around. There is no version of this she can claim to be confused by, no gap in her comprehension she can use as temporary shelter. She understands exactly what she is now and exactly where the boundaries of her new world are drawn. So she does the only thing available to her. She starts mapping it. Exit by the main door, keypad locked, code she does not have. The window, sealed, the service panel in the bathroom corridor, screwed shut. Recently, the edges of the screws are still clean. She notes the timing of the severe woman's visits, the shift change she can hear in the corridor at 6 a.m. and again at 10 p.m., the particular pattern of footsteps that means the floor is being walked rather than worked. She finds no exits. What she finds instead is a routine. She learns its shape the way she has learned the shape of every dangerous thing she has ever had to live inside, carefully, completely, and without letting it show on her face. It is the only control she has. She holds it with both hands. 3 weeks in, she has the routine mapped to the minute. The severe woman arrives at 7 and at 7 in the evening. The corridor shift changes at 6 and at 10. The escort who walks her to Si-hun's office each morning, same man, black suit, the one with the careful eyes, arrives at 8:45 and does not knock, which means there is a signal she cannot see passing between the door and somewhere else in the building. She has noted all of it. She holds it the way she holds everything now, quietly, completely, without any of it showing on her face. Si-hun's office is all dark wood and clean lines and the particular kind of order that belongs to a person who controls their environment because they cannot afford not to. She cleans it each morning in the same sequence, working from the window inward, moving around a desk without touching anything on its surface, which is the instruction she was given once and has not needed to be given again. She is dusting the far edge of the desk when she sees it. It is tucked behind the leather planner in the corner, angled away from the room, the way you angle something you look at privately and do not intend to share. A small piece of notepaper, folded and unfolded enough times that the creases have gone soft. Crayon, 2 figures, one tall and one very small, drawn in the unself-conscious way of a child who has not yet learned that proportion matters. One word written across the top in careful, slightly uneven Korean letters. Appa, father. She looks at it for exactly as long as it takes her eyes to register what it is, and then she looks away and keeps moving and does not return to it. She files it in the same internal space where she files everything she sees in this building, cleanly, completely, behind a door she does not reopen. But she cannot unfeel what it does. Because the man who stood in her doorway and said 4 words and left, the man who removed her phone and her schedule and her life with the quiet efficiency of someone who has done it before, that man has been carrying something for a very long time. Something small and crayon-colored and folded too many times. Something he opens when no one is meant to be watching. She did not want to know this. It rearranges things she was not ready to have rearranged, and she cannot put them back. She finishes the desk and moves to the window. Outside, the city is sharp and indifferent in the morning light. Inside, she can feel what has been building for the past week in the floors above her, not as sound, but as pressure. The men coming through the penthouse level are grimmer. The meetings are shorter and more frequent. Something in the network is tightening toward a point, the way weather tightens before it breaks. And whatever the deadline is, it is getting closer. She keeps the cloth moving. She keeps her face empty. She thinks about soft paper and crayon and a word she was not supposed to see, and she feels the picture she has been building of Park Si-hoon shift and resettle into a shape she is not sure she is ready for. The laptop arrives on a Tuesday with no explanation attached. It is on the table when she wakes, next to a single sheet of paper with 4 lines of instruction printed on it in English. Access the monthly routing reports through the portal. Organize by date. Flag irregularities. Leave the system logged in when finished. The portal is already open. The access is already limited to exactly what the instructions describe, and nothing beyond it. She tests the edges of it within the first 10 minutes, carefully, the way she tests every boundary she is given, and finds them solid in every direction. She understands what this is. It is a test wearing the clothing of a task, which is a thing she recognizes because it is not so different from a lie wearing the clothing of a job. Si-han has made a calculation. She is already inside, already knows more than is survivable, and a woman with a data systems background who was occupied is easier to monitor than one who was not. He is giving her something to do with her hands so he can watch what her mind does with it. She passes it correctly for 4 days, flags 3 minor irregularities, all of them genuine, all of them the kind of thing a careful administrator would catch and a careless one would miss. She writes her notes in plain language and leaves the system logged in when she is done and does not go anywhere near the edges again. On the 5th day, she finds it. She is not looking for it, that is the thing. She is working through a routine reconciliation in the 3rd quarter's routing reports when the pattern registers, not as an alarm, not as anything dramatic, but as a small wrongness at the edge of her peripheral attention, the same way a misspelled word catches the eye before the brain has finished reading the sentence. She goes back, looks closer, runs the sequence forward 3 months, and then backward 6. It is elegant. She will think about that later, how elegant it is, how much patience it requires, how well it understands the difference between what gets checked and what gets assumed. It is not taking money. Money missing makes noise. This is taking something quieter, routing packets of operational data through a shell structure so minor and so consistently placed that it reads as background noise in the monthly reports. Personnel schedules, asset locations, movement patterns. It is not theft, it is cartography. Someone inside this network is drawing a complete map of everything Si-han controls and feeding it, piece by piece, to someone outside. She closes the file. She sits with it for 2 full days, running the same calculation from every angle she can find. Telling him confirms permanently that she understands far more than she was ever supposed to. Staying silent means whoever is receiving the map keeps receiving it until they know enough to act on it. On the 3rd day, she gets up, crosses the room, and knocks on the interior door that connects to the corridor outside his office. She has made her choice. She is not sure it was the right one. She makes it anyway. He does not react when she tells him. That is the first thing she notices. No tension in the jaw, no shift in his posture, no flicker of anything across his face that would tell her whether she has just made the worst decision of her life or something other than that. He listens to the whole thing without moving, standing behind his desk with his hands in his pockets the way he stands everywhere. And when she finishes, he sits down and opens the laptop and begins pulling the data without speaking. She stands on her side of the desk and waits. He works through it methodically. She can tell from the sequence of his keystrokes that he is running the same verification she ran, checking her path through the data before he commits to what it means. It takes him 11 minutes. She counts them. When he finishes, he closes the laptop and looks at her, and the silence stretches long enough that she has to work to keep her breathing even. "How did you see it?" he asks. His voice is exactly as it always is, level, precise, carrying nothing she can use. She tells him the truth, because at this point, the truth is the only currency she has left that means anything. The accounting courses at community college, the data systems minor she picked up because patterns have always made more sense to her than most other things, the 2 years at the import firm where she learned to read financial structures the way other people read faces, by looking at what was slightly off rather than what presented itself directly. The pattern recognition she has never been able to turn off, not once, not even when turning it off would have made her life considerably simpler. He listens without interrupting, not the polite listening of someone waiting for their turn to speak, but the complete and focused listening of someone extracting and filing every piece of what is being said. When she finishes, he is quiet for a moment. Something in his expression shifts, not warmth, not anything that could be confused with warmth. It is something more precise than that and less comfortable, the specific look of a man updating a calculation he believed was already complete and finding that the new variable changes the result in a way he did not anticipate and cannot now account for. He does not say anything else. He picks up his phone. The changes are small, but she notices all of them. The laptop stays. Her access in the routing portal is extended by 2 additional quarters of reports, nothing more, but 2 quarters further than it was. The escort who walks her to the office each morning still arrives at 8:45, but stops outside the corridor now rather than outside the door itself, a distance of 12 feet that is not freedom and is not nothing. The mole is somewhere inside the structure. The shape of what is being built around Sihan is becoming visible to her the way patterns always become visible, gradually and then all at once. She is part of finding it now. Neither of them chose that. It is what it is. She goes back to the ledger and keeps working. She asks about the drawing on a Thursday evening when she has no plan to. Sihan is at his desk, working through something that has kept him there past 9, past 10, the city darkening behind him through the floor-to-ceiling glass, while she works her way through the week's routing reports on the secondary terminal in the corner. It has become a kind of routine, this. The two of them occupying the same room in a silence that is usually functional, and tonight has shifted into something she does not have a clean word for. Less transactional, more exposed at the edges. She is not going to ask, and then she does. "The drawing," she says, "on your desk." She does not look at him when she says it. She keeps her eyes on the screen. The silence that follows is different from his usual silences. His usual silences are tools, deliberate, shaped, deployed with precision. This one is something he is moving through rather than using. "My son," he says. She does not respond. She has learned that with him, the best thing to do when he is moving toward something is to leave the space open. 8 years old, he says, living in Seoul with his grandmother. The distance is not circumstance. It is a decision he makes and remakes every day because it is the only form of protection he has access to for someone he cannot afford to keep close. He has not seen the boy in 14 months. He says all of this in the same measured tone he uses for operational matters, for ledger anomalies, for four-word sentences that erase people's lives. And that is the thing that makes it so difficult to sit with. There is no performance of grief in it. There is just the fact of it, stated plainly, the way you state a thing you have long since stopped expecting anyone to respond to. Jade looks at her screen. She thinks about her sister in Atlanta, whose calls she stopped returning 2 years ago because every conversation ended with her sister sounding more frightened than before, and Jade had decided that frightening the people who loved her was a cost she was no longer willing to charge them. She thinks about her college roommate, whose messages she still reads and never answers. The slow, deliberate cooling of every relationship she has ever valued, one unreturned call at a time. Because proximity to her life felt like something she could not in good conscience ask anyone to accept. She does not say any of this. She does not say anything at all, but she does not look away from the screen with the specific energy of someone avoiding something. She simply stays in the room with what he has said and lets it take up the space it deserves. They do not speak again that evening. He goes back to his work, she goes back to hers. But something between them has moved, not towards safety, not into anything she would call trust. Something quieter than either of those things, and more durable. The particular recognition of a person who has met someone else carrying the same weight by the same method and does not need to discuss it to understand it completely. She closes the ledger at 11 and goes back to her floor. She does not fold the feeling away the way she folds everything else. She lets it stay where it landed. She hears the address through the open connecting door at 12 minutes past 2. She is at the secondary terminal, running the current week's records, half her attention on the data and half on the low exchange of voices in the main office, where Sihan's lieutenants have been assembled for the past 40 minutes. She is not listening. She never listens. But the address arrives in the room at a volume designed to carry, and her mind processes it before she can decide whether to let it. She knows that address. She sits very still and does not let anything show on her face and pulls the memory forward with the same quiet precision she uses on everything. 3 occurrences in the ghost entries of the manipulated ledger, each one routed through the same shell structure she identified 6 weeks ago, the pipeline the mole has been using to move intelligence outward. She had flagged the address as an anchor point in her notes, the fixed location everything else in the structure seemed to route around, not a place where money moved, a place where decisions got made. The lieutenants file out. She hears them assess it as credible, reasonable terms, neutral ground. 40 minutes of professional scrutiny, and they found nothing wrong with it because they were looking for the kinds of things that are wrong with meeting requests and not for the kinds of things that are wrong with ledger entries, and those are not the same list. 38 minutes before the convoy leaves, she can see the clock on the terminal from where she is sitting. She sits with it for 4 of them. The version of herself that stays silent is not an abstraction. She knows exactly what it feels like to occupy it because she has lived inside it for most of her adult life. The version that keeps her head down, that lets the world do what it does, that survives by never being the person who stepped into something that was not her designated space. That version of her is still available. It is right there. She could close the terminal, go back to her floor, and in the chaos following whatever happens in that room, she could walk out of this building and be 3 cities away before anyone thought to look. She knows exactly how that feels too. She has been feeling it for 7 months. She gets up and knocks on his office door. He listens to everything without moving. When she finishes, he asks one question. "Are you certain?" She tells him yes and tells him why, and he picks up his phone before she has finished the last sentence. The convoy does not leave. The meeting location receives a different kind of visitor. The trap closes on the people who designed it with a completeness she does not witness directly, but can read in the quality of the silence that follows. The mole is extracted within the hour. Someone 2 levels deep. Someone he knew. He comes back after midnight, rain on the shoulders of his suit, a cut along his jaw that has been cleaned but not dressed. He finds her in the corridor outside her floor and stands in front of her, and the city blazes cold and indifferent through the glass behind him. "You could have let me walk in. You could have been free of all of this." "I know," she says. He looks at her for a long moment. Then he nods, once, slowly, the way he does everything, with the weight of a man who does not move without meaning it, as though two words have just closed something he has been holding open since the night she pressed her back against cold marble and told herself she was nobody and almost believed it. The envelope is on Saihan's desk when she arrives for the morning session. She notices it because everything on his desk has a position, and the envelope does not belong to any of them. No label, no postmark, no name on the outside. Just a plain white rectangle sitting slightly off-center in a way that feels deliberate, like it was placed rather than left. His security lead is already in the room, standing against the far wall with the particular stillness that means something has happened that has not yet been fully assessed. Saihan opens it without ceremony. One photograph, printed on plain paper. He looks at it for a moment and then sets it face up on the desk, and she can see it from where she is standing, and what she sees is herself. Herself, stepping out of the front door of her old apartment building. The angle is from across the street, slightly elevated, the kind of shot that requires patience and a specific intention. She is wearing the gray jacket she left folded on her bed the night she was relocated to this floor, which means whoever took this photograph took it within the past 72 hours, 3 days ago, long after any outside party should have had any reason to know her name, her face, or the address of an apartment she no longer lives in. Saihan's security lead pulls the metadata from the image file in under 4 minutes and confirms what she already knows from looking at it. Saihan turns the photograph over. 4 words in Korean, handwritten on the back. She reads them before he does, and she reads them the way she has read everything in this building for 7 months, without letting what she understands show on her face. But her hands, hanging at her sides, go very still. She knows. Not a threat directed at him, a message about her, delivered to the tower, which means whoever wrote it knows exactly where she is, and has known for long enough to plan around it. The patience required to watch a person for 7 weeks without surfacing, to watch her before the corridor, possibly, before the pen cap, before any of this, is not the patience of someone reacting. It is the patience of someone who has been building towards something and has decided the time has arrived to make that known. Saihan reads the photograph, sets it down, looks at her. And his expression carries something she has not seen there before. Not calculation, not the controlled assessment he turns on every situation, including her. Something quieter than those things, and less managed. Close to something she has not had directed at her in long enough that it takes her a moment to recognize it for what it is. "You are not a complication anymore," he says. "You are the reason." She looks at the photograph, at the gray jacket, at the ordinary face of a woman going about the business of a life that has already been over for 2 months without the woman in the photograph knowing it yet. The tower has never kept anything out. She understood that the night she mapped the sealed windows and the keypad locks and found no exits. But she had kept the thought at a distance, filed it in the category of things that were true but not yet urgent. Standing in this room, holding the proof that someone has been watching her longer than she has been watching herself, she feels the distance close entirely. The most dangerous place in the city, and the only place she might survive it, are the same room, the same floor, the same man standing 4 feet away who imprisoned her and trusted her and just told her in 4 quiet words that whatever is coming is coming because of her. The ghost who whispered one word is now the secret everyone wants erased. She sets the photograph back down. She does not let her hands shake. She has not let anything show in 7 months, and she is not going to start now. But she stays in the room. That is new. Every instinct she has built her life around says reduce, contract, disappear. Instead, she stays exactly where she is, in the most visible place she has ever stood, and looks at Park Sai-han and waits to find out what comes next. If this story stayed with you, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. And leave a comment below. At what moment did you know Jade was never going to be able to stay invisible? Tell us exactly where your heart shifted. We want to know.